Hello, welcome to the Mirror Moves. Imagine being so nosy you call 911 on a guitar case, then realize the mom runs the sheriff's office. The story today is about a HOA Karen called cops after my son moved in. If there's one thing I've come to understand, it's that nothing stirs up a power-hungry HOA president faster than someone she can't manipulate, especially if that person ends up being more influential or resistant than her. It's like a challenge she can't ignore. Her need to control, to impose her rules, kicks into overdrive. And her reaction to anyone who refuses to fall in line? Always dramatic. It's almost as if she sees her authority slipping if she doesn't try to dominate or discredit them. Let me take you back to the exact moment when this suburban soap opera truly erupted. It was just an ordinary Tuesday morning, the kind where the sun was barely peeking out, casting a dull glow over our quiet neighborhood. I was sitting at my desk, trying to fix a stubborn piece of code that kept crashing. The muffled, familiar sound of a car struggling into the driveway broke my concentration. It was Jake's old Honda Civic, the worn-out car he'd been using during his first year of college. After 5 long months away, he was finally back for the summer. The car sounded like it was coughing and wheezing, chugging its way up the street. When Jake finally pulled into our driveway, he looked tired but happy. He climbed out with a stretch, his lanky frame stretching like a cat waking from a nap. Slinging his well-loved guitar case over his shoulder, he started to walk toward the front door. To anyone passing by, it was a scene so normal, just a kid coming home, nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that would catch anyone's eye, let alone spark any trouble. But we don't live in a normal neighborhood. Not really. We live under the watchful, sometimes hyper-vigilant eye of Karen, our self-appointed HOA queen. To say she keeps a close eye on everything that happens around here would be an understatement. It's as if she's trying to turn our community into her own tiny dystopian surveillance state. She's always lurking behind her curtains, spying on the neighbors like a secret agent. Every car, every new face, every odd noise she sees as a threat to her carefully constructed idea of neighborhood perfection. It was her reactions that night that turned a simple returning neighbor into a full-blown incident. She must have spotted Jake in his hoodie, carrying that dark, bulky case which she immediately associated with danger. Instantly, alarms went off in her head. She didn't bother to come outside, didn't bother to find out who he was or what he was doing. Instead, she dove behind her lace curtains, clutching her phone, and dialed 911. And she report? A dangerous man with weapons, she claimed, in a voice thick with suspicion. Yes, her over-the-top assumption was that a guitar case automatically means someone is armed and dangerous. Because, of course, in her mind, every teenager in a hoodie and with a music bag must be plotting something sinister. It's almost laughable, but also infuriating. Her blinkered view turned our quiet, innocent situation into what she believed could escalate into a hostage scenario or a neighborhood crime wave. 15 minutes later, the peaceful scene was shattered by the arrival of a sheriff's SUV, lights flashing, but oddly, no siren. I got up from my desk to see what was happening just as Jake was unloading a few duffel bags from the trunk, getting ready to bring in his things. The officer stepped out of the vehicle. Tall, stern, and no nonsense, he walked straight toward us with a look that said he'd seen worse. That's when things really started to shift. His eyes swept the yard until they landed on Elena. And what happened next? It was almost surreal. She was on the porch, watering our flower pots, looking perfectly at ease. When she looked up and made eye contact, the sheriff froze. He blinked hard, like he'd just seen a ghost. Then, as if 2 plus 2 suddenly added up to nothing, he took a step forward, snapped a quick salute, and addressed her directly. "Ma'am," he said, sounding a bit stunned himself. His tone was respectful, but also tinged with surprise. Elena's calm, confident response only added to the oddity of the moment. She greased the wheels with her usual coolness, saying, "Let me guess, guitar case?" It was clearly a test, and she passed with ease. Jake decided to make a show of it. With overly dramatic flair, he popped open the case, revealing his beloved guitar. A simple 6-string, but to us, it was worth $1 million. "Yup," he said with a grin. "Dangerous six string right here." For a moment, the tension in the air felt oddly comic. The sheriff didn't laugh, though. He wasn't joking. His gaze shifted from Jake's weapon back to Karen's house, her curtains twitching, her phone still clutched tight. Then he turned his attention to Elena, who was standing there, perfectly composed. He asked if the call was from the neighbor across the street. Elena nodded, explaining that Karen had a habit of jumping to conclusions. Over the years, Karen had made a lot of unfounded assumptions about our family, about our lifestyle, our choices, even tepid accusations about noise or appearance. The sheriff muttered something about false reports and misusing emergency services. Then he asked Elena if it was okay to document the incident. Not because he was threatening us, but just in case this became some kind of ongoing issue. Elena, as the head of our local law enforcement liaison, gave her permission without a second thought. She knew her rights and understood the importance of keeping a record of local conflicts. And here's the kicker. She also told him to file the report with our HOA's oversight board. That's when Karen's house of cards finally started to tumble. She was still peering out from behind her curtains, watching her scheme fall apart in real time, like a bad movie playing in slow motion. Her face turned pale as she realized her secret surveillance and her aggressive report had boomeranged right back at her. All her power to scare and intimidate had dissolved in front of the law, with a simple, straightforward response from Elena and the sheriff. It was a clear, public rebuke of her overreach. The fallout was swift and dramatic. Within the next day, word had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. For years, Karen had held sway, wielding her authority like a sledgehammer. She'd shut down lemonade stands, sent cease and desist notices over Halloween decorations, and made herself the self-glorified gatekeeper of all that was appropriate in our community. The idea that her commands could be challenged and actually documented was a new concept she never expected. The neighborhood, once so quiet and controlled, became a little less obedient overnight. And the best part? That was just the beginning.